Hello, friends. Joe Lynch here from the Logistics of Logistics, and I am at day 2 of Manifest, the future of supply chain and logistics. And I'm talking to my friend Joe Orr from NMFTA. Please introduce yourself and your organization and what you guys do.
Hi, I'm Joe Orr. I'm the COO at NMFTA, and what we do is we are a standard-setting organization. So we focus on classification, cybersecurity, digitalization, and SCAT codes.
Woo! It's a mouthful. So
yes, it is.
So let's go slow. By the way, I interviewed you not so long ago on my podcast talking about the classification changes, and that's for the LTL classifications.
Right.
I just said before we hit the record button, we didn't start this fire. None of us who are alive today created classifications, but I got to tell you, in the 15 years I've worked with LTL, the classifications continue to get easier and easier and easier. I think technology, but also NMFTA leading the charge on simplification. So please elaborate.
Yeah, what we're really trying to do with the 2025-1 docket is to simplify classification. So there's a lot of things in there. First of all, we are looking at, how can we simplify this? How can we make it easier, not only for the shipper, but also the carrier, but also the broker? So we took a look at everything. We went through it manually, and we're looking at going from 11 to 13 sub, but we also looked at, it's not as important what's in there, but it's more important of what are the commodities that you're shipping. So we wanted to simplify that. And so that is what we did with 2025-1. And so that is coming out on July the 19th. And then also we created a new tool called Class IT Plus to help support that. And so that is a much more intuitive tool than what we have today. And that will have APIs also, so you can write integration utilities with it. But also for someone who's not familiar with classification, it's intuitive. You can sit down and you can actually use classification. Where I think in the past you really had to understand classification to understand how to use Class IT. With Class IT Plus, you can actually sit down and learn classification. So you don't have this 1 to 2 year learning curve. Class IT Plus lets you learn classification. So not only are we simplifying classification, but we're making the tools you utilize easier for classification itself.
Yeah, and as a user of that, when I was at a little 3PL, I think one of the challenges you always have is you're using these classifications, and you classify it one way, and then the LTL company classifies it another way, and you told your customer it's $850, it's being $1,250. You go, oh, I didn't realize that they were wooden chairs rather than metal chairs.
Right.
It's the LTL companies that are using it didn't create it. But we're simplifying, getting easier and easier, so there's less of that, because that makes all of us look bad. No 3PL wants to be in the middle of that transaction. No LTL company wants to say, yeah, that's how we do business.
Exactly, and we wanted to reduce the friction between the shippers, the carriers, and the 3PLs. And so part of that friction is the fact that it's like, wait a minute, you got to reweigh this, or the price negotiation. It's like, no, let's get rid of all that. And so at the conference today, that's what we've talked to a lot of the folks that do the dimensions. And, I was joking with them. I'm like, I bet you guys are busy. We're not endorsing the dimensioners themselves, but we are saying, hey, dimensions do have a big play in this.
That has traditionally been a problem, where somebody complains and says, hey, Joe, we did a reweigh or a reclass. You're like, you gave me the wrong weight.
Right.
Like, that's not our fault.
Exactly.
We as shippers have to take responsibility also. Joe, I also want to talk to you. I was lucky enough to go down to the cybersecurity conference out in Cleveland in the fall, and eye-opening.
Yes.
And did a number of interviews down there. I'm still talking quite a bit on my podcast about cybersecurity, because I feel like, and I know you've heard me say this, I'm being a little bit of a drama queen here, but that we are headed for a Cyber 9/11 event where the next day everybody says, who are we working with? Were we impacted? And I think there's a lot of 3PLs, brokers, carriers who are whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things we learned in Cleveland, and we all did, is we really wanted to hear from the shippers or the carriers, and we wanted people to talk. And as we talked, one of the questions that came up was, how many of you guys use the same technology? And everybody raised their hand. And so, as you walk through the conference here, everything's about connectivity. And so if one of these things gets compromised, that's going to...
You said to me before, we all loved it when APIs took all that long integration out of our product. But just because you can integrate with an API overnight doesn't mean you should let your guard down. You have to still have the rules around what is safe connection. And again, I think when we went digital and we got APIs, we're all excited how quick we could go, but we also brought in a lot of risk into our supply chains.
Yeah, we did, and that's what we talked about in our conference.
Yeah, you guys had a media free event, so everyone went, and all the media people, we sat out in the hallway.
Yeah. Well, we also had something here. The first day we did a track 1 opening session, and we had Estes and Ward, and we talked about some of the largest events that happen in cybersecurity, and what are some of those lessons that are learned. And one of the biggest lessons is know your vendor, and vendors are partners, and be close to your partners. And really do your due diligence before you choose your partners, and document everything.
Yeah, and it's funny, I think a lot of people at the cybersecurity conference were very open about what had happened to them, and I think some were already had problems. But one of the messages I heard was, it's not when, or it's not if, it's when.
Right.
And so I think it's not just let's avoid getting hacked, avoid a cybersecurity event, but also be able to recover, hopefully, very quickly.
Yeah, that's why we did the tabletop exercise. We're going to do it again next year.
And I learned another thing from the fine folks over at Sean from Truck Stop said, it's not trust but verify, it's verified then trust.
Yeah, it is. That's a very good...
We got to get to a zero trust environment. And that doesn't mean you don't trust your partners as people. It means you don't trust the technology. Yeah. And by the way, nobody wants to be that partner that screwed up their customers.
Yeah, and it's just don't verify when you sign a contract. Verify again, and keep verifying, because things change.
What's one thing, Joe, that impressed you about Manifest this year?
I think the new technology.
Yeah.
It's simply amazing walking through, looking at the new technology that's here versus last year, and how far it's come within the last year.
Yeah.
It's simply amazing.
Always, it's right behind us. There's a whole bunch of things flying around.
Exactly.
And it's funny, that wasn't here 2 years ago.
No.
Now there's drones. I feel like we're all under attack.
I just saw the dog robot walk by. That's why they were all looking. I'm like, I've not seen that before.
We talked only about a few things that NMFTA does. So you're the standard setting for LTL, but you took the lead for all of logistics when it came to cybersecurity, because no one else was doing it.
Right.
What else do you guys do?
So we're also doing digitalization standards. So we're looking at, we want to look at not only LTL but truckload. We want to help create standards so that it becomes easier to implement. So we started with bill of lading, and we're going from there.
Nice. Who can join NMFTA?
Whether you're a carrier or a 3PL, you can reach out to us and you can join NMFTA. And then we're also going to reach out to everyone, like from a cyber perspective. If you're in trucking, we're going to start seeking to expand, because from cyber perspective, it doesn't matter who you are.
All the IANA was at your conference. There's all the other standard setters, all the other organizations, because it's a problem that if you say we fixed it on our end, but down the supply chain it's broke, then it's broke for all of us.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
We're only good as our weakest link.
Exactly.
Joe, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Joe.